The desperate plea. In the depths of space, on a planet far from Earth, the people of Dyloria were facing their darkest hour. The once thriving world had become a battlefield, and its skies were now choked with the smoke of destruction. The Hylorians, a peaceful and advanced alien species, were overwhelmed by a relentless enemy known as the Varkarians. The Varkarians were ruthless, their ships tearing through Xyloria's defenses with ease. Their numbers were immense, and their weaponry was far more advanced than what the Xylorians had ever encountered. Cities lay in ruins, and the once bustling streets were now deserted, save for the sounds of distant explosions. The Xylorian leaders, who had prided themselves on their advanced technology and peaceful ways, were now faced with a nightmare they could not overcome. In the heart of their last stronghold, the Council of Elders gathered. The room was dimly lit, filled with the soft hum of emergency lights and the worried murmur of the council members. High Elder Varnus stood at the head of the table, his once proud demeanor now marked by weariness and desperation. His people had fought valiantly, but it was clear that they could not hold out much longer. "The situation is dire," Varnus said, his voice trembling. "Our defenses are failing, and our people are suffering. We must consider all options, even those we once deemed unnecessary." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had always considered themselves self-reliant, their advanced technology and peaceful philosophy leading them to believe they could handle any threat alone. But the Varkarians were different. They were an unstoppable force, and their very existence seemed to threaten the survival of the Xylorian species. "Who could help us?" Counselor Aria asked, her voice a mixture of hope and fear. "We have exhausted all our resources and allies. There is no one left who can come to our aid." A heavy silence fell over the room. The thought of asking for help was almost unthinkable to them. Their society had always prided itself on independence and self-sufficiency. Yet, as the sounds of battle grew louder, they knew that their situation had become untenable. "Perhaps," Varnus said slowly, "we must look beyond our own kind. We have received reports of a species known as humans. They are said to be fierce and resourceful, though they are not as advanced as we are." The mention of humans brought a murmur of surprise and skepticism. The Xylorians had heard of humans, but they had viewed them as primitive and unrefined, compared to their own advanced civilization. The idea of seeking their help seemed almost laughable, but desperation had a way of changing perspectives. "We have no choice," Varnus continued. "If we do not act now, we will be lost. We must send a distress call to these humans and hope that they will answer." The decision was made quickly. The council members knew that their message had to be sent with urgency. A small team was assembled to prepare the distress signal. They worked feverishly, drafting a message that conveyed the gravity of their situation without revealing too much of their fear. As the signal was sent into the void, the Xylorians held their breath. The message was a plea for help, a desperate cry from a dying world. It was a simple message, yet it carried the weight of their desperation. They hoped against hope that someone, somewhere, would hear their call. On Earth, the distress signal was received with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The message was garbled and faint, but it was clear enough to understand the urgent tone. At first, many dismissed it as a prank or a false alarm, but a small group of scientists and military officials took it seriously. They were intrigued by the possibility of a species reaching out for help from such a distant corner of the galaxy. "Looks like we've got a distress signal from some alien species," said Commander James, a seasoned officer with a reputation for dealing with unexpected situations. He examined the signal carefully, noting the desperation in the message. "This is no joke. They really need help." The team decided to investigate. They couldn't ignore a plea for help, especially from a species they knew little about. A mission was quickly organized to travel to Xyloria and assess the situation. The crew was made up of experts in various fields, including military strategists, engineers, and diplomats. As they prepared for departure, there was a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The team knew that their mission could be risky, but the chance to help a struggling alien species was too important to pass up. They set their course for Xyloria, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Back on Xyloria, the Tylorians waited anxiously. Their plea had been sent, and now they could only hope that help would arrive in time. The hours dragged on, and the sounds of the Varkarian assault grew louder. The Xylorians clung to a fragile hope, knowing that their fate now rested in the hands of unknown allies. As the human team traveled through space, they prepared themselves for the unknown. They knew they were about to enter a conflict that could change the course of their mission, and perhaps even their own history. The call for help from Xyloria had set in motion a series of events that would test their courage and determination. And so, the stage was set for an epic encounter. The fate of Tyloria hung in the balance, and the arrival of humanity could mean the difference between salvation and annihilation. The next chapter of their story would begin soon, as the humans prepared to meet their desperate allies and face the challenges of a war-torn world. Earth's response. Back on Earth, the unexpected distress signal from Tyloria had caused a stir among scientists and military leaders. In the bustling headquarters of the United Earth Defense Coalition, UEDC, teams scrambled to make sense of the alien message. The signal, though faint and broken, was clear enough to understand the urgency in the plea for help. Commander James stood in front of a large screen displaying the message. His brow was furrowed as he reviewed the details. "This is serious," he said to his team. "The Hylorians are in a tough spot. Their world is under attack, and they're asking for our help." Dr. Elena Torres, a leading scientist in xenobiology, peered over James's shoulder. "The message mentions that they're being attacked by a species called the Varkarians. We don't know much about them. But if they're as bad as this message suggests, this could be a major crisis." James nodded. "We need to decide how to respond. We could ignore this and risk their extinction, or we could send a team to investigate. If the situation is as bad as they say, it's our responsibility to help." At first, some members of the council were skeptical. "We don't even know if this message is genuine," said one council member. "It could be a trap or a hoax." "But what if it's real?" countered another. "We can't just ignore a plea for help from another species. What if the roles were reversed? We would want someone to come to our aid." Despite the doubts, the decision was made. A mission would be launched to Xyloria. The team chosen for the task was a mix of experts: military strategists, engineers, scientists, and diplomats. They were selected for their skills and their ability to handle unexpected situations. As the team prepared for their journey, they were briefed on the details of the mission. The primary goal was to assess the situation on Xyloria and determine the best course of action to help them. The team would be led by Commander James, with Dr. Torres handling scientific analysis and Lieutenant Markov overseeing the tactical aspects of the mission. The crew gathered in the briefing room, where James addressed them. "We don't know what to expect when we get to Xyloria." Their message was clear: they're in desperate need of help. We have to be ready for anything. Our mission is to find out what's happening and provide assistance if we can. Dr. Torres added, "We'll need to be cautious. The Varkarians could be dangerous, and we don't know their capabilities. Our priority is to gather information and support the Tylorians as best as we can." With their orders clear, the team began their preparations. They reviewed their equipment, checked their supplies, and rehearsed their roles. As they worked, there was a palpable sense of determination and purpose. They knew the mission was important, not just for the Tylorians, but for Earth as well. The ship, named Resolute, was ready for launch. It was equipped with the latest technology and armed with defensive systems to protect against potential threats. As the countdown to departure began, the team felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. They were about to embark on a journey into the unknown, with the fate of an alien world hanging in the balance. In the quiet moments before launch, Dr. Torres reviewed the data they had on Xyloria. The planet's environment is similar to Earth's, but with some significant differences. We'll need to adapt quickly. Lieutenant Markov checked the tactical systems. I'll make sure we're prepared for any combat situations. If the Varkarians are as dangerous as we've heard, we need to be ready. As the Resolute lifted off from Earth, the crew settled into their roles. The journey through space was smooth, but the tension was high. The team knew that their mission could have significant consequences, and they were determined to succeed. Meanwhile, on Siloria, the situation continued to worsen. The Hylorians waited anxiously for the arrival of their potential saviors. They clung to the hope that help would come in time to turn the tide of the conflict. Back on Earth, the public was largely unaware of the mission. The UEDC kept details under wraps to avoid panic or misinformation. However, there was a growing sense of anticipation among those who knew about the mission. The idea of humans helping an alien species was a thrilling and hopeful prospect. As the Resolute approached Tyloria, the crew prepared for their arrival. The planet came into view, its surface scarred by the ongoing battle. The human team braced themselves for the challenges ahead, knowing that their actions would have a lasting impact on both the Hylorians and their own world. The ship descended into the atmosphere, heading towards the Tylorian stronghold where they had been directed. The crew's hearts raced as they prepared to meet their alien allies and face the enemy that threatened their new friends. The time had come to see if humanity could live up to its promise of helping those in need. The fate of Tyloria and the relationship between two very different species now rested in the hands of the brave men and women aboard the Resolute. Arrival and first contact. The Resolute glided through Xyloria's atmosphere, its engines humming smoothly as it descended toward the planet's surface. Inside, the crew was tense, each member focused on their task. Commander James stood at the helm, peering through the viewport at the devastated landscape below. The once vibrant world was now a patchwork of ruined cities and smoky skies. Dr. Elena Torres adjusted her equipment, preparing to gather data on the planet's environment. The atmosphere seems breathable, though we'll need to be cautious of any pollutants from the battle, she said, her voice steady but tinged with excitement. Lieutenant Markov reviewed the ship's tactical systems. We're approaching the coordinates given by the Hylorians. Get ready for potential contact. The Resolute touched down in the remains of a Silorian city, the landing gear settling into the cracked pavement. The crew exited the ship, stepping into the ruins of what was once a thriving metropolis. The air was thick with dust and smoke, and the distant sounds of battle rumbled through the ruins. As they made their way through the devastated city, the humans were struck by the sight of the Tylorian buildings, towering structures now scared and broken. The Xylorians had once been proud of their advanced architecture, but now it was a ghost of its former self. A group of Xylorian soldiers awaited them at the edge of the city. They were wary but hopeful, their armor dented and their faces marked by exhaustion. High Elder Varnus stepped forward to greet them, his demeanor a mix of relief and apprehension. "Welcome, humans," Varnus said, his voice carrying the weight of both hope and fatigue. "We are grateful for your arrival. Our situation is dire, and we need your help urgently." Commander James extended a hand in greeting. "I'm Commander James, and this is my team. We've come to assess the situation and provide assistance. Can you brief us on what's happening?" Varnus nodded and motioned for the humans to follow him. "Please, come with me. We will show you what has happened to our world and discuss how you can help." The group moved through the wreckage, Varnus leading them to a command center set up in one of the few remaining intact buildings. The room was filled with holographic displays and maps showing the progress of the Varkarian invasion. The Xylorians had made an effort to fortify their defenses, but the maps revealed the overwhelming scale of the enemy's assault. Dr. Torres examined the displays with interest. "Your technology is advanced, but it looks like you're facing a formidable opponent. Have you tried any countermeasures?" Varnus sighed. "We have tried everything, but the Varkarians are relentless. Their ships are too powerful, and their ground forces are numerous. We cannot hold out much longer. Lieutenant Markov scanned the maps, his mind already formulating tactical strategies. We'll need to understand their tactics and technology better. Our goal will be to develop a plan that combines your defenses with our own resources. Varnus nodded. That would be very helpful. We have some data on the Valkyrians, but it is incomplete. Any assistance you can provide will be invaluable. As the team settled into their new surroundings, they began working with the Xylorians to analyze the situation. Dr. Torres focused on understanding the planet's environment and its potential impact on the ongoing battle. Markov and his team worked closely with Xylorian military experts to devise a plan to counter the Valkyrian forces. The first few hours were a whirlwind of activity. The humans integrated their technology with the Tylorian systems, setting up communication channels and defensive measures. The Xylorians watched in awe as the humans worked with precision and skill, their advanced equipment complementing their own technology. Despite the progress, there was an underlying tension. The Valkyrians were not far away, and the sounds of battle grew louder as night fell. The humans and Xylorians worked side by side, their collaboration a symbol of their shared determination to overcome the threat. As the evening wore on, Commander James and Varnus took a moment to discuss their strategy. They stood on a balcony overlooking the city, the smoke-filled sky casting a somber glow over the ruins. "Do you think we can turn the tide?" Varnus asked, his voice heavy with concern. James looked out at the city, the lights of the remaining buildings flickering in the darkness. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but I believe we can make a difference. If we combine our strengths and adapt to the Valkyrians' tactics, we have a chance." Varnus nodded, taking a deep breath. "Your confidence is reassuring. We have lost so much, and it is hard to believe that victory is still possible. But with your help, I have hope." The two leaders shared a moment of silent understanding. The fate of Tyloria now rested on their shoulders, and the success of their mission depended on their ability to work together and overcome the challenges ahead. As night settled over the city, the humans and Xylorians prepared for the battles to come. The Resolute stood as a beacon of hope amidst the ruins, a symbol of the help that had arrived just in time. The team knew that their efforts were only beginning, and the path to victory would be fraught with difficulties. But for now, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The first contact between humanity and the Tylorians had been made, and the groundwork for their alliance had been laid. Together, they would face the Valkyrian threat and strive to save a world on the brink of destruction. The battle plan. The command center buzzed with activity as the first light of dawn pierced through the smoke-filled skies of Tyloria. The Xylorians and the human team were working side by side, their combined efforts focused on creating a strategy to turn the tide against the Valkyrians. The tension was palpable, but there was also a shared sense of determination and urgency. Commander James stood at the head of the room, studying the holographic displays that illuminated the command center. The screens showed detailed maps of the battlefield, with markers indicating Valkyrian positions and Silurian defensive lines. Around him, the team worked diligently, analyzing data and formulating strategies. Dr. Elena Torres reviewed environmental data with a group of Tylorian scientists. "The air quality is worse than we anticipated," she noted. "The Valkyrians' weapons are causing significant pollution. We need to account for this in our plan, especially for any prolonged engagements." Lieutenant Markov, working alongside Tylorian military strategists, focused on the tactical aspects of the battle. "We need to use both Silurian and human technology to create a defensive network that can withstand the Valkyrians' assaults," he said. "Our priority will be to fortify key positions and create choke points where we can make a stand." High Elder Varnus joined the meeting, his face a mixture of hope and anxiety. "What do you propose as our best course of action?" he asked. James turned to Varnus. "We need a multi-phase plan. First, we'll establish a defensive perimeter around the most critical areas. Second, we'll launch a counter-offensive to push the Valkyrians back and reclaim some of the lost territory. Finally, we'll work on a longer-term strategy to secure your world and prevent future attacks. Varnus nodded, absorbing the information. We have some defensive systems in place, but they are not enough. We need your technology and expertise to enhance our capabilities. Dr. Torres chimed in. We can modify your existing defenses with our technology. If we combine our resources, we should be able to create a more robust defense system. We'll need to address the air quality issues and ensure that our equipment remains operational in these conditions. The plan was set into motion. The team worked tirelessly throughout the day, coordinating with Silurian forces to implement the new defensive measures. Human engineers and Silurian technicians worked together to install advanced shielding and weaponry, adapting to the specific needs of the battlefield. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the team prepared for the first phase of their plan. The defensive perimeter was almost complete, and the combined forces were ready for the imminent confrontation with the Varkarians. The atmosphere was tense but focused. Commander James addressed his team and their Silurian allies. We've done everything we can to prepare. Our first priority is to hold the line and protect the critical areas. Remember, we're fighting for the survival of Tyloria and its people. Lieutenant Markov added, be prepared for anything. The Varkarians will not be easy to defeat, but we have the advantage of surprise. Let's use that to our benefit. Dr. Torres offered a final piece of advice. Stay vigilant and keep an eye on your equipment. The conditions are harsh, and we need to ensure everything remains operational. If we can maintain our defenses and push the Varkarians back, we have a chance. The night was filled with the sounds of preparation and anticipation. Tylorian soldiers took their positions, their faces set with determination. The human team made final adjustments to their gear, their minds focused on the task ahead. As the first waves of Varkarian forces approached, the combined forces of Tyloria and humanity were ready. The defensive perimeter lit up with a barrage of energy beams and missiles, creating a wall of fire and light that repelled the initial assault. The battle was fierce. The Varkarians, caught off guard by the strength of the new defenses, regrouped and launched a series of coordinated attacks. The ground shook with explosions, and the sky was filled with the streaks of weapon fire. Despite the chaos, the Hylorian and human forces held their ground, their combined efforts making a significant impact. Commander James directed the defense from a command post, coordinating with Lieutenant Markov and its Hylorian commanders. Hold the line. Push them back where you can. We need to maintain our position and keep their forces at bay. Dr. Torres monitored the environmental systems, ensuring that the pollution from the battle did not compromise their equipment. We're holding steady, but we need to keep an eye on the air quality. If it gets too bad, it could affect our systems. The night wore on, and the battle raged. Despite their best efforts, the Varkarians were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. The combined forces of Tyloria and humanity fought bravely, but the Varkarians' strength was formidable. As dawn approached, the first phase of the battle reached a critical point. The defensive perimeter had held, but the Varkarians were regrouping and preparing for a new assault. The human and Silurian forces were exhausted but determined. Commander James and Varnus met briefly to assess the situation. We've made it through the first wave, but this is just the beginning, James said. We need to prepare for a sustained fight. Our next phase will involve launching counterattacks and reclaiming lost ground. Varnus nodded. We will do everything we can to support you. Together, we have a chance to turn this around. The battle was far from over, but the combined efforts of Tyloria and humanity had made a significant difference. The first phase of the plan had been successful, and the foundation was set for the next steps in their fight against the Varkarians. As the sun rose over the battlefield, the weary but resolute forces prepared for the next stage of their struggle. The alliance between Tyloria and humanity was proving to be a powerful force, and together they faced the challenges ahead with renewed determination. The major offensive. As dawn broke over Xyloria, the battlefield was a landscape of devastation and determination. The previous night's defensive efforts had provided a glimmer of hope, but now it was time for the next phase of the plan, the major offensive. The combined forces of Xyloria and humanity were preparing to take the fight to the Varkarians and reclaim lost ground. Commander James and his team were busy finalizing their strategies. In the command center, the holographic displays showed updated maps of the battlefield. The Varkarian forces had regrouped, and their numbers were still substantial, but the humans and Xylorians had a plan to push them back. "All right, everyone," James said, addressing his team and their Xylorian allies. "We've done well in holding our positions, but now it's time to go on the attack. Our goal is to drive the Varkarians out of the key areas they've taken and regain control." Lieutenant Markov reviewed the tactical plans. "We'll divide our forces into 3 main groups. The first group will launch a frontal assault to push the Varkarians out of their current positions. The second group will move to flank their defenses and create chaos in their rear lines. The third group will focus on strategic targets, like their command centers and supply depots." Dr. Elena Torres made her final checks on the environmental systems. "We've reinforced our defenses and improved air quality controls, but we need to stay alert. The pollution from the battle could still be a problem, especially if the Varkarians intensify their assault." The combined forces were mobilizing, preparing for the offensive. Xylorian and human soldiers worked together, loading weapons and organizing supplies. The air was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as everyone prepared for the coming fight. As the sun climbed higher, the first group, led by Lieutenant Markov, moved out. Their objective was to push through the Varkarian lines and reclaim key positions. The assault began with a barrage of coordinated fire, the sky lighting up with explosions as the Varkarians scrambled to respond. The ground shook with the impact of the weapons, and the noise of battle was deafening. The Xylorian and human forces pressed forward, their combined firepower making a significant dent in the Varkarian defenses. The Varkarians fought back fiercely, but the humans' advanced technology and the Xylorians' determination gave them an edge. Meanwhile, the second group, led by Commander James, moved to flank the Varkarian forces. They approached from a different direction, catching the enemy off guard. The Varkarians, stretched thin by the initial assault, struggled to respond to the new threat. The second group's presence created confusion and disrupted the Varkarian lines, making it harder for them to mount a coordinated defense. Dr. Torres and her team worked tirelessly to monitor the situation from the command center. "The new defenses are holding up well," she reported. "We're seeing some improvements in the air quality, but we need to keep an eye on it. If the Varkarians use more heavy weaponry, it could get worse." The final group, tasked with targeting Varkarian command centers and supply depots, moved with precision. Their goal was to cripple the Varkarians' ability to wage war by taking out their key logistical and strategic assets. The team infiltrated Varkarian control areas, planting explosives and disabling crucial infrastructure. As the offensive continued, the tide of the battle began to shift. The Varkarians, though still formidable, were being pushed back. The combined strength of the Xylorian and human forces proved to be a powerful counter to their aggression. The Varkarians' lines were faltering, and their once confident positions were now in disarray. Commander James and Lieutenant Markov coordinated their efforts from the command center, adjusting strategies based on the evolving situation. "We're making progress," James said, his voice steady. "But we need to keep the pressure on. The Varkarians will regroup if we give them a chance." Markov nodded. "We've got them on the ropes, but let's not let up. We need to secure the areas we've regained and ensure that they can't launch a counterattack." The battle raged on, and the efforts of the combined forces were making a real difference. The Xylorians and humans fought with a sense of unity and purpose, their shared goal driving them forward. The Varkarians, despite their strength, were struggling to keep up with the relentless push from their enemies. As the sun began to set, The initial phase of the major offensive drew to a close. The Varkarians had been driven out of several key positions, and the tide of the battle was turning in favor of the Silurians and humans. The ground that had been lost was being reclaimed, and the enemy's advance was slowing. Commander James and Varnus met to assess the day's progress. "We've done well today," James said, looking out over the battlefield. "But we need to stay vigilant. The Varkarians won't give up easily." Varnus, though weary, was hopeful. "Thanks to your help, we've made significant strides. We've shown that we can fight back. But the battle is far from over. We need to keep up the momentum and continue our efforts." As night fell, the battlefield was a mix of quiet and activity. The Varkarians were regrouping, and the Silurians and humans were consolidating their gains. The sense of accomplishment was tempered by the knowledge that the fight was still ongoing, but the progress made that day was a significant step toward victory. The alliance between Siluria and humanity had proven to be a formidable force, and together they faced the challenges of the battle with renewed determination. The major offensive had been a success, and the path to securing Siluria was becoming clearer. As the stars began to shine over the battlefield, the combined forces prepared for the next stage of their fight, knowing that their efforts were making a real difference in the struggle for survival. The aftermath. The sun rose slowly over Siluria, casting a warm golden light across the battlefield. The once chaotic and fiery landscape was now a scene of quiet aftermath. The major offensive had succeeded in pushing the Varkarians back, but the cost of victory was visible in the wreckage and the weary faces of the soldiers. Commander James walked among the ruins, his boots crunching on the debris of shattered weapons and fallen equipment. The battlefield was eerily silent, with only the occasional distant sound of repair work and the murmur of exhausted troops. The offensive had dealt a significant blow to the Varkarians, but the fight had taken a toll on both sides. James approached the command center, where the Silurian leaders and human officers were gathered. The mood was a mixture of relief and solemnity. The damage was extensive, and the losses had been heavy, but there was also a sense of accomplishment and hope for the future. High Elder Varnus greeted James as he entered. "The battle was hard fought, but we have made progress," Varnus said, his voice carrying a note of both exhaustion and relief. "Our people are grateful for your help. We have regained control of several key areas, but there is still much work to be done." James nodded, acknowledging the gravity of the situation. "We've pushed the Varkarians back, but we need to ensure that we maintain our hold on the territory we've reclaimed. We also need to address the immediate needs of the Silurian people and rebuild what has been lost." Dr. Elena Torres and her team were busy assessing the environmental impact of the battle. "The air quality has improved somewhat, but it's still not ideal," she reported. "We need to continue monitoring and make sure that our technology can handle any further damage. The pollution from the battle could have long-term effects if not addressed." The human and Silurian engineers worked side by side, repairing damaged infrastructure and setting up temporary facilities to aid in recovery efforts. The teamwork between the two species was a testament to the bond forged during the battle. Lieutenant Markov was coordinating the distribution of supplies and medical aid to the wounded. "We've got a lot of injured personnel to care for," he said, his face lined with concern. "The medical teams are working around the clock to provide treatment and support. It's crucial that we take care of everyone affected by this conflict." As the days passed, the focus shifted to recovery and rebuilding. The Silurians, with the help of the human forces, began to restore their homes and communities. The once battered cities slowly started to show signs of life again. Children played in the streets, and people went about their daily routines with a sense of renewed purpose. Commander James and Varnus held a meeting to discuss the next steps. "We've achieved a lot, but there's still a lot to be done," James said. "We need to plan for the long term and make sure that the Varkarians don't regroup and launch another attack." Varnus agreed. "We must strengthen our defenses and establish a more permanent alliance with your people. This conflict has shown us the value of cooperation. We need to build on that and ensure that Xyloria is better prepared for any future threats. The alliance between the Xylorians and humans was solidifying, and both sides were committed to ensuring a lasting peace. Joint training exercises were planned to further integrate their forces and improve their readiness for any future conflicts. The two species had proven that they could work together effectively, and now it was time to build on that success. Dr. Torres and her team continued their work, focusing on environmental recovery and ensuring that the planet's ecosystems were restored. "We're making progress," she said. "The pollution levels are decreasing, and we're seeing signs of recovery in the environment. It will take time, but Xyloria will heal." Despite the challenges, there were moments of camaraderie and celebration. The Xylorians held a ceremony to honor the fallen and express their gratitude to the human allies who had fought alongside them. It was a moving tribute, filled with speeches and shared stories of bravery and sacrifice. Commander James and his team attended the ceremony, feeling a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. The bond between the two species was evident, and there was a shared understanding that their alliance had made a significant difference in the fight for survival. As the ceremony concluded, Varnus approached James. "Thank you for everything," he said. "Your people have been a true ally in our time of need. We are forever grateful." James smiled. "It was an honor to fight alongside you. Together, we've shown that we can overcome even the greatest of challenges. Let's continue to work together to build a better future for Xyloria and for all of us." The recovery efforts continued, and life on Xyloria began to return to a semblance of normalcy. The scars of battle remained, but there was also a sense of hope and renewal. The alliance between the Xylorians and humans had proven to be a powerful force, and together, they faced the future with determination and optimism. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between the two species grew stronger. The shared experience of the battle had created a lasting connection, and the lessons learned would guide their efforts in the years to come. The aftermath of the battle was a time of rebuilding and reflection, but it was also a time of renewed hope and commitment to a brighter future. A new era. Months had passed since the major offensive that had turned the tide in the struggle against the Varkarians. Xyloria was recovering, and the planet's landscapes, though scared, were slowly healing. The alliance between the Xylorians and humans had proven to be more than a temporary arrangement. It had become a partnership that would shape the future of both species. Commander James stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling city of Xyloria's capital. The once devastated streets were now alive with activity. Reconstruction had been swift, thanks to the combined efforts of human and Xylorian engineers. Buildings were being restored, parks were being replanted, and new structures were rising where old ones had fallen. High Elder Varnus joined James on the balcony, his eyes reflecting the pride and optimism that was palpable throughout the city. "It's incredible to see how much has been accomplished in such a short time," Varnus said. "Our world is coming back to life, thanks in no small part to the cooperation between our people." James nodded, appreciating the view. "It's a testament to what we can achieve when we work together. This isn't just about rebuilding a city, it's about building a new future." The partnership between Xyloria and humanity had gone beyond the battlefield. Joint research projects were underway, exploring new technologies and sharing knowledge. Xylorian scientists were learning from human advancements, while human engineers were gaining insights from Xylorian innovations. The two species were growing stronger together, both scientifically and culturally. Dr. Elena Torres and her team continued their environmental work, focusing on long-term sustainability. "The recovery is progressing well," she reported during a meeting with both Xylorian and human leaders. "We're seeing significant improvements in air quality and ecosystem health. The combined efforts of our teams have made a real difference." Lieutenant Markov, now working as a liaison between human and Xylorian military units, spoke about the ongoing training programs. "The joint exercises have been incredibly beneficial. We're learning from each other and developing new tactics that make us more effective as a unified force." The cultural exchange between the Xylorians and humans was also flourishing. Festivals, art exhibits, and educational programs allowed both species to share their traditions and values. It was not just about survival anymore. It was about understanding and respecting one another's cultures. One of the highlights of the new era was the establishment of the Alliance Council, a governing body made up of representatives from both Xyloria and Earth. The Council was responsible for overseeing the ongoing cooperation and ensuring that the partnership remained strong. It was a symbol of the new era of unity and collaboration. During the first official meeting of the Alliance Council, Varnus and James sat side by side at the head of the table. The council members, a diverse group representing various sectors and interests, were eager to discuss the future. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter," Varnus said as he addressed the council. "Our partnership has already achieved so much, but there is still much to do. We must focus on building a sustainable and prosperous future for both our peoples." James added, "Our shared experiences have taught us the value of collaboration. Let's continue to work together to overcome any challenges that come our way. The strength of our alliance lies in our unity." The council meeting was a productive session, with discussions covering a wide range of topics, from economic development to educational exchanges. The members were united in their vision for a future where Xyloria and Earth would thrive together. As the meeting concluded, James and Varnus took a moment to reflect on the journey they had been on. The challenges had been immense, but the results were beyond what either had imagined. The new era was one of hope, progress, and a commitment to a better future. In the weeks that followed, the positive momentum continued. New projects were launched, and the sense of optimism grew. Xyloria was becoming a hub of innovation and cultural exchange, and the relationship between the two species was stronger than ever. The alliance had brought about changes that went beyond the physical reconstruction of Xyloria. It had fostered a deeper understanding between humans and Xylorians, breaking down barriers and building bridges. The shared experiences of battle and recovery had created a lasting bond, and the future was looking bright. As the sun set over Xyloria, James and Varnus walked through a newly restored park, reflecting on their achievements. The park was filled with families enjoying the evening, a symbol of the renewed life and hope that had emerged from the trials of the past. "This park is a reminder of what we've accomplished," Varnus said, gesturing to the vibrant scene around them. "It represents the new beginning we forged together." James smiled. "It's more than just a park. It's a symbol of our shared future. The work we've done here is just the start. There's so much more we can achieve if we continue to stand together." As they watched the sunset, the two leaders knew that their journey was far from over. The challenges of the future would test their alliance, but the foundation they had built was strong. The new era was one of possibilities and promise, and both species were ready to embrace it with hope and determination. In the years to come, the story of Xyloria and Earth would be one of cooperation and growth, a testament to the power of unity in the face of adversity. The new era had begun, and with it, the promise of a brighter and more harmonious future for all.